Good morning. Today we'll talk about the second category of pericyclic reactions. If you remember, we were discussing the categories of pericyclic reactions, and in that we have said that pericyclic reactions are categorized into four various reactions. The first one was cyclodicial reaction. The second category is the electrocyclic reaction, which we'll be discussing here. The third category, of course, is the sigmatropic reactions, and the fourth category is the Krupp transfer reaction or the miscellaneous reaction. So we'll be talking about the second category of pericyclic reaction, that is electrocyclic reactions. And as the name suggests, electrocyclic means pi electrons will be involved in cyclization of acyclic systems. This should be electrocyclization. Now, electrocyclization is one in which you need to have a polyene, minimum a diene, which under reversible conditions cyclizes to a cyclic product. For example, again, let's take butadiene molecule. Now, when we draw or write butadiene molecule, as we did in the case of cycloadditions, we would do it a similar way. We draw the butadiene in a cissoid form. This, of course, was the trasoid form, and then we'll draw it in a cissoid form, which we know is more reactive of the two. Now, in electrocyclic reactions, one component, we don't have two reactants here like cyclodicial reactions, only one reactant is present, and that reaction should be a conjugated polyene system. The minimum is a diene, it can be a triene, a tetraene, and so on. In that conjugated polyene system, the pi electrons will move in such a way or reorganize themselves in such a way that this will lead to the formation of the cyclic product. So how do we write the cyclic product in electrocyclization reactions? Like this. Remember, these are reversible reactions. That means if a acyclic product can cyclize, the cyclized product can open up to the acyclic part. How do we write the product? We just need to move the arrows here. How do we move the arrows? Again, simple. This pi bond goes on to form a sigma bond between this and this carbon atom. This pi bond forms a pi bond between this and this two carbon atom. Again, if you want to be clear with the positions of the bonds, you can number the system. So what we end up is a cyclobutane ring. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, and a double bond at 2 and 3 position. That means from butadiene we are going to cyclobutene. If this kind of a process occurs in which an acyclic component having k pi electrons, let's say, cyclizes to a cyclic product having how many electrons? 2 electrons less than the acyclic part. That is, if it had k pi, this had k minus 2 pi, and it forms a one new sigma bond. This process of cyclizing an acyclic component having a polyene system into a cyclic component is known as electrocyclic ring closure, or it is also called as electrocyclization. And as I've told you, these reactions are largely reversible in nature. Now, first of all, let's define what are electrocyclic reactions. There are 4 electrocyclic reactions. Reactions are those reactions in which k pi electrons, which needs to be, of course, conjugated, of the acyclic system reorganizes to a cyclic product having k minus 2 pi electrons and a new sigma bond is formed. From acyclic to cyclic, the forward reaction, that is from acyclic to cyclic, we should call it as electrocyclic ring closure, or simply electrocyclization. And the back reaction, that is from the cyclic product to the acyclic product, should be called as electrocyclic ring opening. Right? So this is what is electrocyclic reactions. Therefore, if I have to again repeat what is electrocyclic reactions are those reactions in which you have a k pi component in the acyclic component that undergoes a reorganization of pi electrons to form a cyclic product having k minus 2 pi and a new sigma bond is formed. And like all pericyclic reactions, this reaction again has to proceed through a cyclic transition state. Now first of all, let me take another example of electrocyclization. Let's say now I'm talking about the electrocyclic ring closure of hexatriene. Now how do I write first of all a hexatriene molecule? Of course I know hexatriene is this system in the triazolid form, not reactive, undergoes a rotational change, a bond rotation, and forms a cis-oid conformation. This is hexatriene in a cis-oid form. How many pi electrons it has? Total of 3 pi bonds. All 3 pi bonds are conjugated, so it's a 6 pi electron system. This undergoes electrocyclic ring closure in such a way that these pi bonds move. Now let me number the system. Let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. How does this pi bond move? 1, 2 bond, you can move in either direction, either clockwise or anti-clockwise. So 1, 2 bond goes to form a 1, 6 single bond. The 5, 6 bond breaks and forms a 4, 5 double bond. The 4, 3 bond breaks and forms a 2, 3 double bond, and the result is the formation of a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's see where the double bonds came. 5, 6 double bond broke and became 1, 6. 1, 2 double bond broke and became 1, 6. 5, 6 double bond broke and became 4, 5. 3, 4 double bond became. And if you look here, now this system is a 4 pi system, and a new sigma bond is formed. So I can call this reaction as electrocyclic ring closure. Now how do we categorize these reactions? Electrocyclic reactions are categorized on the basis of conjugated pi electrons in an acyclic component. Now again, for example, we talked about cyclobutadiene, example 1. Again, this get converted into cyclobutene through the movement of arrows. This is what we made. I should call this reaction as, because the reactant or the acyclic component had 4 pi electrons, I should call this as 4 pi electrocyclization reaction. So 4 pi means 4 pi electrons are involved in electrocyclization, followed by the term electrocyclization. This should be the name of the reaction. Similarly, if you talk about hexatriene like this, you can either write it like this or you can write it like this, is one and the same thing. Hexatriene, let me draw it like this. undergoes electrocyclic ring closure. Again, the movement of bonds will help us drawing the product. The carbon count of the reactant and the product would remain the same because no other reactant has been added to the system. We end up in this thing. The starting reactant, the acyclic component, had 6 pi electrons. Therefore, I'll call this reaction as 6 pi electrocyclization. Similarly, let's say this is example 2. Let's say I have octatetraene, this molecule. How do I write the product? Again, it is simple. All I need to do is to move the arrows either clockwise or anti-clockwise. The result is the formation of an 8-membered cyclic ring starting from an 8-membered acyclic system. Again, if any confusion is there, you can number. Well, I'll recommend you number each and every system. Forget about the IUPAC numbering if you're not naming the molecule in IUPAC way. So 1-2 double bond goes between 1 and 8 single bond, 7-8 goes to 6 and 7, 5 and 6 goes to 4 and 5, 3 and 4 goes to 2 and 3. This was a 8 pi electron system. I'll call this reaction as 8 pi electrocyclization. Right? And if this was the electrocyclization reactions, the reverse would have been electrocyclic ring opening. And in order to write the ring opening reaction, let's go back to these examples. We knew this bond. Which bond? The bond at the allylic carbon atom to the double bond. This is the double bond. Next carbon is allylic atom, this bond. If this breaks in such a fashion, this electron comes here, this pi electron comes here, and we from the cyclic products will reach again to the acyclic product. Similarly, again let's locate the allylic carbon atom, double bond, next carbon is allylic carbon atom, the bond of the allylic carbon atom, this one. If this breaks like this, we'd end up in again the hexatriene system. Similarly, the conjugated triene system, this double bond, this bond, double bonds next carbon atom 8 or 1 are both allylic. So if 1-8 bond breaks, this reaction will open up again to the acyclic component. Whatever is the number of electrons in acyclic or cyclic system, the reaction's categorization or name is always given with respect to the number of electrons in the acyclic system. For example, I'll call the conversion of butadiene to cyclobutene the electrocyclic reaction, the electrocyclic ring formation of butadiene to cyclobutene as 4 pi electrocyclization. And also I'll call the electrocyclic ring opening of cyclobutene to butadiene again as 4 pi electrocyclization. I'll not consider that cyclobutene in the product here when it opens up to butadiene is having only 2 pi electrons. The name of the electrocyclization reaction will come from the number of conjugated pi electrons in the acyclic component, whether it is closing the ring or it is opening the ring, whether it is electrocyclization or electrocyclic ring opening, whatever way, the name of the reaction will also always come from the number of conjugated pi electrons in the acyclic component. So this is something regarding the electrocyclic reactions. What are these? How do we write the product from the acyclic component to the cyclic component, and from the cyclic component again to the acyclic component? I will talk about the mechanism of action. That how does writing the arrows and moving the arrows is all right, but what is the mechanism of action of these reactions? Now, in order to understand the mechanism of action, again we need to go back to the orbital picture, right? Okay, let's talk about the first example, the reaction of the electrocyclization of butadiene to cyclobutene. And as I've told you, since 4 pi electrons are there in the acyclic component, I'll call this reaction as 4 pi electrocyclization. Okay, let's draw butadiene molecule. Butadiene molecule is like this in the trapezoid form, of course. I can write it like this also. In order to simplify the structure, or in order to make it clear, let me write butadiene like this. Pi bond, pi bond. These 4 pi bonds here are formed by the sideways overlap of the unconjugated pz orbital like this. We know this thing. Now when we move the arrows, we say this bond comes here and this bond comes here and a pi bond is formed. Actually at the mechanistic level, what is happening, these two terminal lobes of the conjugated polyene system, which in this case is a butadiene, we have to focus while drawing the product that what are the terminal carbon atoms of the conjugated system. For example, in this case the terminal carbon atoms are this and this. Let me call this as 1, 2, 3, 4. So terminal carbon atoms are 1 and 4. It is the lobes of the terminal carbon atom which will actually rotate in order to form a bond. That means this lobe will rotate in this fashion. Let's say this will move in a clockwise fashion, and let's say this moves in a anti-clockwise fashion. If that happens, what will happen? We'll have this kind of a sigma bond formation occurring between the two terminal lobes at lobe 1 and 4. What is remaining? At lobe 2 and 3 we have 1 electron apiece. Earlier you had a pi bond formation here, you had a pi bond formation here. All 4 lobes had 1 electron. 1 and 2 lobes underwent sideways overlap to form a pi bond. Similarly 3 and 4 lobes underwent a sideways overlap to form a pi bond. Now what happens? 1 and 4th lobe underwent rotation in such a way that their lobes can join one another and form a sigma bond. So what has happened? 1 and 4, which were earlier forming a pi bond between 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, are now have now gone on to form a sigma bond. So I can say what has happened? This bond is sigma and here it is pi. So what has formed? A cyclobutene ring. So all what has happened is that it is the movement of the terminal lobes in either clockwise or anti-clockwise direction with respect to each other that it undergoes a sigma bond or an internuclear overlap, leading to the formation of a sigma bond. The remaining two unhybridized pz orbitals having 1 electron each underwent sideways overlap and resulted in the formation of a pi bond. Right. Similarly, let's talk about another example to explain the same mechanism of action. Let's talk about the example of hexatriene cyclohexa-1,3-diene interconversion. In the acyclic component hexatriene, I have 3 conjugated pi bonds, that means 6 pi electrons. Therefore I'll call this reaction as 6 pi electrocyclization reaction. Right. How do I draw the hexatriene? Simply I can draw the hexatriene in this fashion. Right, this is hexatriene molecule. If I have to draw the lobes, I'll draw the lobes like this. I am more concerned at the terminal p lobes. Of course, to start with all the p lobes here, let me call this carbon 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. Carbon 1 and 2 terminal p lobes underwent a sideways overlap to form a pi bond. Similarly 3 and 4 sideways overlap to form a pi bond. 5 and 6 underwent sideways overlap to form a pi bond, something like this. And this was your hexatriene molecule. When electrocyclization has to take place, it is always the terminal p lobes of the conjugated polyene system, which in this hexatriene's case is the first carbon atom and the 6th carbon atom. So first and 6th will rotate. They can rotate like this, let's say. If they rotate like this, what will happen? These two terminal p lobes underwent a rotation to undergo a internuclear overlap, leading to the formation of sigma bond. What was left? A p lobe here, a p lobe here, a p lobe here, a p lobe here, having 1 electron apiece. They underwent sideways overlap to form the pi bond. The result is that from this system we'll end up in the formation of cyclohexa-1,3-diene. And remember, how do we draw the products? How had we drawn the products otherwise also? All we used to do was we used to move this bond arrows like this, and this could lead to the formation of cyclohexa-1,3-diene. Right. So this is how the electrocyclic ring closure should occur. It is the terminal lobes of the conjugated polyene system which should rotate to form a sigma bond with each other, and hence the reaction will lead to the formation of cyclization. Right. Now we'll talk about the stereochemical modes operative here. Now this is important. Stereochemical modes in cyclodation reaction. I'm sorry, not cyclodation, we are talking about electrocyclic reaction. We've talked about, if you remember, we started with electrocyclic system. We've talked about the introduction to start with. What is electrocyclic reactions? We've talked about the second point, the categorization. Then we have talked about number third point, the mechanism of action. Now we are talking about the fourth point is the stereochemical mode in electrocyclic reaction. Right. Now what is stereochemical mode? Let me again go back to the butadiene system. I'm talking again the example of butadiene and cyclobutene interconversion. How did this reaction occur? I said I draw the butadiene molecule like this. These are the two terminal p lobes, and I know that these two terminal p lobes can rotate in the clockwise, can rotate in such a way that these two p lobes can undergo internuclear overlap, leading to the formation of sigma bond. Now there are two ways in which this lobe can rotate. I'll try to draw those two ways and make you understand that what are the stereochemical modes operative here. If it so happens, or let me draw it like this. If it so happens that these two terminal lobes move in the same direction, either both the lobes are moving in clockwise direction, or both lobes are moving in an anti-clockwise direction. Means, if this lobe is moving in a clockwise direction like this lobe is also moving in a clockwise direction, then one can assume if these two lobes are moving in a clockwise direction, how will the bond formation occur? The bond formation will occur because if this lobe is moving like this portion of the lobe will come here. That means on these terminal carbon atoms 1 and 4, I have two lobes. On the first carbon atom it is the lower lobe and the upper lobe. On the fourth carbon atom of the p orbital I have the lower lobe and the upper lobe. Once it undergoes a rotation in a clockwise direction, it is the upper lobe of the fourth and the lower lobe of the first pz orbital that will undergo an overlap. Now what will happen? Therefore the result will be something like this. So the result will be something like this. Please forget about that. Don't consider this one. This is 1, 2, 3, 4. If I call this, let's say as A and let's say as B, I call this as A, I call this as B. What has happened? This one was B, this one was A, this one was B, this one was A. That means it has happened in such a way that the terminal lobes of the conjugated Pauling system move in the same direction. Similarly, if this motion is shown to be, let's say, in the clockwise direction, because this is moving clockwise, this is also moving clockwise. Other way around, if this moves in an anti-clockwise direction, how do I write it? That means this lobe moves like this and this lobe moves like this. If this is moving like this will move in this direction. If this one moves in this direction, let me call this as A and B, let me call this as A and B. The lobes, differentiating the lobes of the terminal carbon atoms, then what will happen? They'll undergo a sigma bond overlap like this, where A will come here and B will come here. This is what is happening. That means the two lobes can either go clockwise or they are moving in a anti-clockwise direction. So my first case here is in the stereochemical mode is called the conrotatory ring closure. What is it? If the terminal lobes of the conjugated polyene moves in same direction. That is, either both lobes moves clockwise or both moves anti-clockwise. In the same direction, both moves clockwise or both move anti-clockwise, then this stereochemical mode is called conrotatory ring closure. Right? So first mode is if both the lobes move in same direction, both lobes moving in a clockwise way or both lobes moving in an anti-clockwise way. And the second stereochemical mode is disrotatory. First of all, let's draw disrotatory mode. Again, taking the example of hexatriene, let's say, taking the example of butadiene, let's say I have this butadiene molecule. These are the 4 p lobes of butadiene molecule. If it undergoes electrocyclization in such a way that, let me call this as 1, 2, 3, 4 again. If first lobe moves in, let's say, a anti-clockwise direction, the second lobe moves in a clockwise direction. That means both the lobes are moving in opposite directions. If fourth is moving in the clockwise direction, first is moving in a anti-clockwise direction. This should be it, like this. Then what will happen? Again, let's put it this as A, this as B. Let's put this as A and this as B. So what will happen? See, a sigma bond formation will definitely occur between first and fourth carbon atom, and a pi bond formation will occur between the third and fourth carbon atom. But here it is the B lobe will come here and B will come here to form a bond with one another. Here the first is moving in an anti-clockwise direction, as you can see, and the fourth lobe is moving in a clockwise direction. And conversely, drawing the same kind of a structure but with different mode of cyclization. That is, let's say if we've written B or first P of lobe moving in an anti-clockwise direction, now I'll write first lobe moving in a clockwise and the fourth lobe moving in an anti-clockwise, yani ki opposite directions. So if this is moving like this orbital will come here. If this is moving like this will come here. Again, let me call this as A, this as B, this as A, this as B. How would they two join to form a sigma bond? Again, something like this. This is A, this one is A, this is B, this one is B. Again, first lobe here is moving in a clockwise direction and the fourth lobe is moving in an anti-clockwise direction. Now, means to say the second stereochemical mode, which we call it as disrotatory, the two terminal lobes are moving in opposite directions. First moving, let's say first lobe is moving in an anti-clockwise direction, the last lobe will be moving in a clockwise direction. Or if the first lobe is moving in a clockwise direction, the last lobe will move in an anti-clockwise direction. If both terminal lobes of the conjugated polyene system moves in opposite direction, we call this stereochemical mode of rotation as disrotatory. Therefore, what is disrotatory? If terminal P lobes of conjugated polyene system moves in opposite direction. That is, if first lobe moves clockwise, the last lobe moves anti-clockwise, or conversely, if first lobe moves in anti-clockwise direction, comma, the last lobe moves in clockwise direction, then this stereochemical mode is called disrotatory ring closure or ring opening, right? Now then we should understand, let's repeat what we have done. We have talked about two stereochemical modes. The first mode was the condensatory ring opening or closure. In this condensatory ring closure, to start with, both the terminal lobes move in same direction. Either both lobes are moving in a clockwise direction or both lobes are moving in an anti-clockwise direction. If I have to talk about the ring opening, that means from here to here, what will happen? Either both the terminal lobes are moving in same direction. That means if this, let's say, is moving in this direction, end up in the same product. If this is moving in this direction, B will go like this. Then since it is a condensatory ring closure, if this is moving, let's say, anti-clockwise, this will also move anti-clockwise. That means if this moves anti-clockwise, that means this will move like this. So both are anti-clockwise in nature. Again, what will happen with this kind of a rotation? A will come down, B will come up, B will come up, A will come down. So both lobes, if we are talking about electrocyclic ring opening, this lobe is moving in an anti-clockwise fashion, this lobe is also moving in an anti-clockwise fashion. Similarly here, if you see, this lobe is moving in a clockwise direction. If this lobe is moving in a this was moving in a clockwise direction, this was also moving in a clockwise direction. So this A is moving in a B is moving in a clockwise direction, A is also moving in a clockwise direction. Here, if B is moving in an anti-clockwise direction, now B, let's say B comes here, A is moving in anti-clockwise direction. Similarly, if you look here, this is again B. Since it is condensatory, the lobes have to move in similar way. So here A will move here and B will move here. So look here, B and A moving in same direction. B also clockwise, A also clockwise. A anti-clockwise, B anti-clockwise. So this kind of a ring opening or closure is called the condensatory. And conversely, if both lobes are moving in opposite direction, if this is anti-clockwise, this is clockwise. If this is clockwise, this is anti-clockwise. If this is clockwise, this is anti-clockwise. Then this kind of a ring closure is called disrotatory. Similarly, if lobes move in this direction, lobes move in this direction, this is all disrotatory mode of ring opening and closure. Now, why does this happen in this way? Why should a ring close in a disrotatory mode and why should a ring close in a condensatory mode? In order to understand this concept, we need to understand that P lobes again are un-Girard in nature. That means they encounter different signs on passing through the center of the symmetry. Now let's say I have a butadiene molecule like this. Now since I have a butadiene molecule, let's say my P lobes are like this. So I put signs on the P lobe in such a way that the terminal P lobes are having same signs on the same face. For example, as you can see, the upper face of the diene will have positive charge and the lower face of the diene will have the negative charge. They can be different, but in this example, I am showing them to have the same sign. Now, in order to achieve a bonding overlap, the positive should overlap with positive and negative should overlap with negative. Hence, if this lobe moves in this direction, this lobe has to move in this direction so as to achieve a positive bonding overlap. That means the mode of rotation which will lead to a bonding overlap should be what? First lobe moved in an anti-clockwise fashion, second lobe moved in a clockwise fashion. That means both lobes are moving in an opposite direction. This mode of rotation is called disrotatory. Okay, one thing I've forgotten to tell you, that conrotatory ring closure is abbreviated as con, and disrotatory ring closure is abbreviated as dis. Okay, so this is the disrotatory mode of closure. And imagine if the signs of the terminal lobes of the p orbital were like this. This is positive, this is negative, let's say, and here this was negative, this was positive. If this was the signs of the terminal p lobes, how do we write the signs and how do we differ the signs is a matter of discussion, which we'll discuss in later part of the course. Anyways, if this was the orbital picture of the butadiene, let's say, in order to again achieve a bonding overlap, the positive should overlap with positive, or conversely negative should overlap with negative. Now for positive to overlap with positive, the last lobe, that is the fourth lobe, should move in a clockwise direction, and the first lobe, this one, should move in a clockwise direction. That means both lobes are moving in the same direction. That means bonding overlap can be had once we move the lobes in the same direction, and once the lobes move in the same direction, we call this kind of a stereochemical mode as conrotatory. Therefore, whether a ring will follow a conrotatory stereochemical mode or a disrotatory stereochemical mode would be achieved only once we understand what is the orbital picture. Now, how do we write the signs of the terminal lobes and how do we differ in different examples? This we'll talk when we'll talk about in detail the molecular orbital picture of the reactants, right? So this is something regarding the fourth point, that is the stereochemical modes operative in electrocyclic reaction. Now, one thing which we have not discussed purposely and now which we'll discuss here, that we'll talk about the fifth point, that is the examples of electrocyclization. Now let's go back to electrocyclization. Let's take a simple example of cyclobutene butadiene. You know this thing, that these are interconvertible. Butadiene can be written as a reactant, or a cyclobutene can be written as a reactant, is one and the same thing. The acyclic component butadiene has 4 pi electrons, therefore we categorize this reaction as 4 pi electrocyclization, right? Now, following the electrocyclization, how do we write the product? I have a butadiene molecule, let's say like this. How do I write the product? I move the arrows and I write the product. My product is cyclobutene. Now let's follow that these are the 4 carbon atoms of butadiene and these are the 4 carbon atoms of cyclobutene. To start with, all the 4 carbon atoms of butadiene were sp2 hybridized and hence planar, whereas once they undergo cyclization, second and third carbon atom of course is still sp2 hybridized, but first and fourth carbon atom becomes sp3 hybridized, and since they are sp3 hybridized, they should have a tetrahedral geometry. That means 2 groups should be in plane, 1 group should be above the plane, and another group should be below the plane. And therefore, if I have different substituents on 1 and 4, which substituent will go above the plane, which substituent will go below the plane, is a matter of consideration which we need to follow in the electrocyclic reactions. I'll repeat what I'm saying. During the course of electrocyclization reactions, when it happens, we see that initially in the polyene system all carbons are sp2 hybridized, and since all carbons are sp2 hybridized, we do not expect any stereochemistry to rise here. However, when a product formation takes place, as in the case of cyclic systems, the terminal carbon atoms of the polyene system becomes sp3 hybridized, and since they become sp3 hybridized, they assume a tetrahedral geometry, and in tetrahedral geometry we know 2 bonds are in plane, 1 bond is above the plane, another bond is below the plane. If that is the case, if I have in the reactant 2 different substituents attached to first and fourth carbon atom, I'd be having first and fourth carbon atom as potential stereomers, and if there are 2 possible stereoisomers, then 2 raised to power 4, that means 4 stereoisomers are possible. So if there are 2 potential stereo centers, 2 raised to power 4 stereoisomers are possible. And again, going back to what we said in the case of pericyclic reactions, that pericyclic reactions are concerted reactions, and in concerted reactions they are largely stereospecific in nature. That means out of the potential isomers which can be formed, only one or at the max two isomers are formed. And let's take this with the help of an example. Let's take some substitution at first and fourth carbon atom of the butadiene system. Okay, let me take this as example 2. Let's say I have this molecule as my first reactant, and I assume that this is undergoing a disrotatory disrotatory mode of electrocyclization. First of all, this methyl, my system of course is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So if I look at this molecule, this is hexa 2,4-diene, but the actual participating region of this molecule is this butadiene component of this hexa 2,4-diene. So these are the terminal p lobes of the second atom, and the fifth atom, carbon atom, are the terminal lobes of the framework of the molecule, which is actually undergoing electrocyclization reactions, not the first and the sixth carbon atom. Again, what I'll say, whatever is the length of the molecule, it is only the terminal p lobes or the terminal carbon atoms of the conjugated polyene system which will undergo cyclization. Now, therefore, the terminal carbon atoms are 2 and 5. Hence, in order to draw the cyclic product, I'll draw it like this: a bond formation between 2 and 5 and a bond formation between 3 and 4. Hence, my product should be cyclobutene, like this. The point is, again, these two carbon atoms are potential stereocenters. Now, where will the methyl go? Where will this methyl go is a point of consideration. Now, first of all, look at the geometrical picture. Here will be hydrogen, here will be hydrogen. Let's look at what kind of a configuration this double bond, geometrical isomerism, this double bond and this double bond has. As you can see, on this second and third carbon atom, attached to second is this methyl group coming towards the right, and on the third carbon atom, this hydrogen is coming towards the right and this large group is coming towards the left. That means on second atom, the larger group, and on third atom, the larger group are on the opposite side. Hence, at second carbon atom, the geometry is E, and at the fourth carbon atom, at the fifth carbon atom, methyl and hydrogen are attached. At fourth, hydrogen and this large group is attached. Methyl and large group are on the opposite side. Hence, the fourth carbon will also have a E geometry. So this is my starting diene. I preferred to close this molecule in a disrotatory manner, and if you remember, when I close it in a disrotatory manner, what will happen? The terminal p lobes of the conjugated polyene system. What are the terminal p lobes? The p lobe present at second position and p lobe present at fifth position should close in such a manner that both lobes are moving in opposite direction. That means if first the lobe on second is moving in a clockwise direction, the lobe on the fifth should move in an anti-clockwise direction. Or conversely, if the lobe on second is moving in an anti-clockwise direction, the lobe on fifth should move in a clockwise direction. We will consider both the closures. Now, but before we do that, let's draw the orbital picture and then try to put the subsequence with respect to the orbital. Now, for simplicity, I am not drawing the p lobes here and here. This will assumingly form a pi bond. This p lobe. Methyl was here, methyl was here. Hydrogen was here, hydrogen was here. This was your butadiene molecule to start with. Of course, a p lobe here, a p lobe here. I'm not drawing it. Let's say the first disrotatory mode is when lobe 1, first lobe, moves in a clockwise fashion, and since it is disrotatory, first is moving in clockwise, the fourth has to move in a anti-clockwise fashion, is right? And if that is the case, let's say first is moving in a clockwise fashion. Clockwise means like this, and the fourth lobe is moving in anti-clockwise. That means like this, is right? This is the mode of closure. Once this will move, we'll have this kind of a cyclobutene formation. Again, methyl and hydrogen will come here. Methyl and hydrogen will come here. Now, where will methyl go? Where will hydrogen go? This is a point of consideration. If this lobe, now how is this lobe? these four carbon atoms and even the methyl, these four carbon atoms and even this methyl and methyl are in the plane of the paper. The p lobe is something like this above the plane of the paper. Now if you can imagine this thing, here is the p lobe, okay, here is the subsequent methyl outside. Once this moves, methyl goes up. Since it has to rotate, how it will rotate? See how it will rotate, try to understand. Okay, consider these as the two terminal p lobes of the conjugated Corrine system. This is the, let's say, first carbon atom, and this one is the fourth carbon atom. The vertical, this one and this one, are the p lobes, and pointing outside towards the right, this blue pencil is the methyl, pointing outside towards the green pencil is the methyl, and inside definitely would be hydrogens. Now if these two p lobes have to rotate in order to form the sigma bond between the first and the fourth carbon atom, we should understand that how will this bond formation take place. The two lobes have to move. If let's say first lobe is moving in a clockwise fashion, see I am trying to show it clockwise like this from your side. It is moving in a clockwise fashion. Where will the methyl go? Above. The second lobe is moving in an anti-clockwise fashion. It is like this, and where will the methyl go? Above. That means once the sigma bond formation happens, both the methyls are going above the plane. And conversely, if first lobe has to move in a anti-clockwise fashion, it moves like this, and second lobe has to move in a clockwise fashion, it will move like this. And see, where are the two methyl, the two pencils going? Below the plane. That means if first mode was such that first lobe moves in a clockwise fashion, if first mode was such that first lobe moved in a clockwise fashion, the second moved in an anti-clockwise fashion, both methyls were above the plane. Secondly, first moved in an anti-clockwise fashion, second moved in a clockwise fashion, both methyls are below the plane. That means the motion of the terminal p lobes would decide where will these two subsequents, the two methyls, will go. Since in this case both methyls were out, this disrotatory mode or this disrotatory mode, so there are two such disrotatory modes, either like this or like this. So the first disrotatory mode will make shift both the methyls towards above the plane. The second disrotatory mode will make methyls go below the plane. So these are two opportunities, or you can say the two positions where the methyl will go in the product. Okay, again I will try to explain this thing. This was the p lobe, this is coming above the plane. This methyl is here. So I have two things. I have this p lobe coming like this, and this methyl coming like this. If this lobe is moving in a, let's say, clockwise direction like this, then what will happen? The methyl will go down. So here the methyl has to go down and hydrogen will go up. And conversely, if this is moving in this direction, this methyl goes down and this hydrogen moves up. So hydrogen moves up and methyl goes down. So I had this product. Second opportunity or second possibility was, like as I've told you in previous example or in previous case, the substituent's position of methyl was both the double bonds were having the E geometry. Similarly, if it undergoes a disrotatory enclosure but in a different way, that the first lobe moves in, let's say if here it was clockwise, here we say it moves in an anti-clockwise fashion, and the second moves in a clockwise fashion. What will happen? Here it is hydrogen, here it is hydrogen, this is first lobe. Now first lobe moves in a anti-clockwise fashion. Anti-clockwise means here. The second lobe moves in a clockwise fashion like this. This is the mode of ring closure. What will happen to the product? Again the product will be similar. One group above, another group below, one above, second below. Okay. If this is moving like this, of course this is the movement. What will happen? With the motion of this bond, this methyl goes up, and of course hydrogen comes down. With this one, the methyl goes up and hydrogen goes down. So I have two stereomeric products. In fact, if you look at these two molecules, these are enantiomeric in nature, or in fact they are identical in nature with this methyl and this methyl. Here it is below, here it is above, here it is below, here it is above. So these are enantiomeric in nature. We'd have two products formations here, one in which both methyls are below the plane, one in which both methyls are above the plane, and this mode of closure is disrotatory. See how do we write the product. Now that means two p lobes, okay, we'll draw or we'll consider the second mode, that is conrotatory here. This was disrotatory. Same example, this was example 2. We'll talk about example 3, taking the similar reactant. That means here we have a hexatriene system, butadiene system. Methyl was here, and of course hydrogen will be inside. This is the initial reactant. Let's say if this undergoes a conrotatory ring closure. If it undergoes a conrotatory ring closure, that means both lobes move either clockwise or anti-clockwise. Okay, if the both lobes move clockwise, let me draw those two reactants here. Two p lobes, both methyl was here, this methyl was here. Of course hydrogen is here, both lobes moves in a clockwise fashion. This moves here, this moves here, this will move here, this will move here. With this methyl will go down, this methyl will go up. So my product of this conrotatory ring closure will be that this methyl would go down and hydrogen will go up. Here the methyl will go up and hydrogen will go down. And the second possibility, here the lobe were moving in clockwise direction. The second possibility, when both the lobes were moving in a anti-clockwise direction. Methyl here, hydrogen here, both lobes, since it is conrotatory, both moves in anti-clockwise fashion. If both are moving in anti-clockwise, let's say this is moving in this direction, this is also moving in this direction, like this. If this is moving in this direction, this methyl goes above, and of course hydrogen comes down. If this is moving in this direction, this methyl goes down and hydrogen goes up. So the relationship between these two products again is enantiomeric. This methyl above, this down, this above, and this down. And if you look at the products here, in this case the two methyls are assuming a trans relationship. Either consider this product or consider this product, whereas in the case of disrotatory ring closure, both were having a cis relationship with respect to one another. And this is how we write the products with dis and conrotatory ring closures. This is it for the day. Tomorrow in tomorrow's class we'll be discussing how to write the other products of electrocyclization. Thank you and have a good day.